From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos Postgame Reaction Podcast, brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. I'm Ben Grant, he's JB. The Toronto Argonauts drop a 27-19 decision to the Saskatchewan Roughriders in what was, I thought, a very entertaining game. I thought a way better football game than I expected to see, with both the windy conditions at Mosaic Stadium and the Argos starting a bunch of guys they wanted to take a look at, and with a plan to really cycle guys through. We'll break it all down. We'll tell you what we saw and go through, what the Argos did achieve today and maybe where they fell short as well. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about Something in the Water Brewing. You've got one more week of practice coming up this week for the Argos at Lamport Stadium, and Something in the Water Brewing is just steps away from that practice facility. Get down to practice if you're able to. Stroll over to Something in the Water Brewing and try Longboat if you haven't yet. And if you have, you want to try another, that's great. You want to try something new, they got a ton of stuff as well, including some seasonal selections. You have to check out Something in the Water Brewing. And don't forget that they're open year-round. You can go and get Ghost Taco, which is a fabulous new addition to the Something in the Water Brewing setup. It is the perfect place to go for all Argo fans, and that is you. JB, takeaways here. Pretty good football game. Not necessarily what I expected today.
Started slowly.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely pretty exciting, and especially because you have one team who's not making the playoffs and one team that's clinching their division. You would think that would be a considerable mismatch. But the Argos gave as good as they got in this game. If they get that call on the turnover, they even have a chance to steal the win. So yeah, it was a pretty exciting game for a kind of level 2 roster in terms of guys that are rolling in.
Yeah, and I think that also speaks to this coaching staff to get guys to play like this, because it's not like it's all guys that are getting their first opportunity to, you understand why guys like Jared Dagey, Tucker Horn, you get why they're giving you everything they've got. But most of the team that was out there tonight are the regular guys. There's 5 or 6 guys that are new, but that's it. And when you're not in the playoffs, it's the first game that you're playing where you're now eliminated. Most often teams come out really flat and they look disinterested and they look like they're just kind of counting the days to start their offseason. That was not what we got from the Argos today, and I give a lot of credit to the coaching staff because I know how hard that is. And they did a great job of getting these guys to want to put more plays on tape.
Well, I think it speaks to what we talked about all season, that this is not a poor team or a last place team. This is a good roster, but it is not a great roster. And, they are competitive in every game, and almost every game this season, they were very competitive. So this is not a team that needs a rebuild. It's a team that needs a couple of players.
Yeah, and it's funny, the guys that I was watching to start the game, I'm looking out for the guys that I want to see more, like Delonte Hood. I wanted to see a lot of. I was really hoping to see a lot of Anderson, who got at the big, tall receiver. We haven't got a chance much to see Dorian Anderson this season. Dylan Giffen back into the lineup. Those guys didn't really create as much excitement as I was hoping. Dylan Giffen, first of all, I hope he's okay. He had been working his way back from a back injury, and to me, without knowing anything yet, that's what it looked like. He re-aggravated when he came in for Boss. That didn't look great, because I've completely turned around on Dylan Giffen. When he was first drafted, going back to, this is a 2020 draft, I didn't love the pick. I didn't see him as a long-term CFL offensive lineman, and I believe I was wrong in that. He's proven himself to be a very capable guard, and a guy that I think you really look to have in their next season as one of the solid foundations of that interior, the offensive line. And you're just hoping he could get back out there today and get through the game healthy. It was crushing to see him need to be helped off the field the way he was. So I hope that he's feeling better than it looked like he was feeling. And then some of the other guys, it was a tough night. Delonte Hood got picked on a bunch early on. Anderson had a chance to make what could have been a huge and potentially game-tying touchdown on the flea flicker and just couldn't quite secure it. Instead, it was some of the usual suspects making big plays and almost giving the Argos the victory in the end.
The penalties were a problem again. That has to get cleaned up.
Yeah, without question, they had some really untimely moments too. Like even when they get the contacting the kicker penalty go for them, then they get a no yards on the other end to negate that. It's just like, oh, come on, they just needed that one extra drive, and it was a strange game because it was so windy going one way. So the Argos had the wind in the first quarter and the third quarter, which are the two quarters you don't want the wind. You want them in the second and the fourth. And even that could have potentially swung this around. And you know how bad the wind is because Saskatchewan actually elected in the second half not to take the ball. They ended up choosing side instead, because they wanted the wind in the fourth quarter. So the Argos actually got the ball to start the game and start the second half, but they ended up on the short end of the stick when it came to the wind. And that really made a difference. I think on that flea flicker play, you see, as it developed there, it was so beautifully sold by Daggy. He put everything he could on that. And that ball, it's not like he had to go far, but you could see him just try to launch that as far as he could, and it just didn't get there enough. Anderson was wide open on the flea flicker. Everybody bit. The safety came charging in hard. It was perfectly called, perfectly run, but that wind just held it up a little too long. Anderson still got two hands on it. Should have caught that ball. That should have been a touchdown. But it's an easy touchdown if there's no wind there. So that did factor in a little bit today. Let's talk about Delonte Hood for a second, because I felt like Saskatchewan's plan early on was to go after him. And in the first half, certainly it was a problem. What I saw with him was, first of all, he got backed up, back in man coverage, got backed way off his man. Guys that came back to the ball on shorter routes were wide open. And then there was another play where he had flats responsibility. And this is tough for young corners too, because they know they've got flats, but against flood concepts where you've got a guy in about 10 yards behind you and then a guy deep down the field, you know the deep guy is going to be occupied by your deep help. So you now have the two shallow guys. And what you have to do there is you have to give up the flats. You have to sink back and take away that 15-yard out, way more so than take away the flats. And he kind of got caught looking at the running back coming into the backfield on a swing route and ended up getting beaten behind.
I mean, that's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Like,
it is.
I wouldn't, you'd love I just think that's just one of those things where, like, if you dial, that's why it's so challenging or tricky to dial up the same defense too often. But I think that's kind of, if you dial up a zone and then they run that zone beater, you can certainly hope that you overcome it. But I can't kill a guy on that because it's all happening really fast.
It does for sure. And then I thought he settled in after that, though. I thought he actually played pretty good football after that. There was that sort of backbreaker to MLS late in the game that was against Hood. He was in good position. Like, MLS caught it against Hood's helmet. So, that's a pretty tough break. Like, maybe he gets his head around and that's different. But, his positioning I didn't think was too bad on that play. It's just
exactly. That's just a great
made a great play. The other guys defensively, I continue to be very impressed with Aaron Casey and Isaac Darkangelo. I thought both guys had their moments today, and I think that's going to be a really interesting offseason conversation. I think, in looking at those two guys, the way I see them is I see I see Casey as a potential starting middle linebacker. Now, I think Isaac D'Arcangelo can do it, but he's also like the perfect second middle linebacker, a guy that can play all your special teams, a guy that you're very comfortable having on the field in those 3-4 looks on second down, and a guy that can also slide over to Will if you need him to. And he can also step into the Mac position if your first guy goes down. Like I think there's going to be some very tough conversations. Even looking at like what do you do with Wyndham McManus, and that's stuff that we can talk about for our offseason plan. The most talented defender on the team, and yet you've got a couple young guys that they look pretty good right now. How did you assess their play today?
The linebackers?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think D'Arcangelo he's the perfect guy to have on the team, just like you mentioned, right? He can give you starting reps. It's not that big a drop. He's a superb special teamer. He's an incredible asset. I love to hold on to him. I love to think Casey got a little more run. Maybe in the last game he might get some more snaps. I'd really love to see can he do it? Can he be a guy who can be the number 2 guy, or even I guess potentially number 1? But yeah, I'd love to see him to get some more run. But I thought he looked good tonight. I'd just like to see a full start for him and then a full game.
That punch out of Ouellette where Casey came in, punched that ball out again, perfect teach tape on how to do that, and then is able to recover it like one-handed from AJ Ouellette while amazing play.
He flashes. I mean, he's flashed all season.
Yeah.
And maybe they feel like he's best in short bursts, but I'd really love to see if he could be somebody who might compete for a starting position.
Yeah, I would love to see. Again, they've got it's a good problem to have, but it's going to be an interesting conversation in the offseason, certainly. In terms of the rest of the defense, this was a good night for the defense. Like you think about the fact that like 27 points, it's not like it's a shutout or anything like that, but 27 points, Riders at home, that is an extremely tough place to play. They've got the obsidian green uniforms, the light show at halftime, the energy was high. And I feel like limiting the Riders to 27 points when they're trying to clinch the first place in the West, and you've got a lot of guys in there that are playing for the first time or haven't got a lot of action this year, I think that's a fantastic performance by the defense. I know Trevor Harris still threw for 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, and AJ Ouellette with 69 rushing yards, Bertrand Udon with another 32. It's not like those are amazing numbers, but they kept finding a way to force field goals. They kept finding a way to get off the field. Lawther, who had been struggling badly, had to hit 5 field goals. And I think if most of Saskatchewan's points are coming from field goals, I think that's a huge win for Toronto's defense.
Yeah, I thought they played pretty well. I think the score was a little misleading. Yeah, I agree. They played. They had great plays. They didn't hold up for the whole game, but they definitely had plays where they look great, and they had series where they look great, which is encouraging. And Saskatchewan is, you could argue, the favorite for the Grey Cup. So that's at home with a game they have to win. That's as good an opponent as you're going to run into in the CFL, and felt like the defense went punch for punch with them and gave the offense a chance to win the game. So that is, I guess we are in the moral victory stage of the season, but that is a nice performance by a team against one of the top 2 teams in the CFL.
We got to see all 3 quarterbacks tonight for the Toronto Argonauts switching over to the offensive side of the ball. Actually, just one before we switch over to the offense, just one last shout out for Isaac D'Arcangelo with 11 tackles on the day. And that special teams hit that he made on as a punt return, Mary Alford coming down the sideline, and Dark Angelo just at full speed, like a train. Oh my goodness.
That's what you get for running the rail.
I know. He just...
Coaches, anybody who's coached special teams would be like, get out of bounds. I know they're always looking for that rail and for the touchdown, but like, you are taking your life in your hands when you tiptoe down that rail.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's talk about those quarterbacks on the other side of the ball. So Jared Dagey, I thought played really well. He had a couple rough series. He wasn't given any favors, like especially in the early going. The very first play is a 3-yard loss on a run, and so he's right up against it. The second series, they end up with was that a hands to the face penalty? It was a penalty on Boss on the second series. That backed them up. They couldn't get the first down. So they had trouble getting out of their own way early. I thought he put together a nice game. He ends up 20 of 31, 221 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. The pick came late, basically to end the game on a play that was initially flagged as a roughing the passer, but I think it was correctly picked up. You look at that replay, and he doesn't get hit in the helmet there. I didn't have a problem with the...
No, I thought that was a good pickup. It was bang, and it was to the shoulder. I think you have to give them that.
Yeah, no, and I think that it was just one of those things. It's a pick because it's desperation time.
I do have some further words on the replay booth, but we can get to that.
We'll maybe get to that a bit later. Jared Dagey came out of the game. He took 3 really hard hits to the head. The first time the concussion spotter actually pulled him from the game, and I thought that was going to be it. They ended up sending in Tucker Horn to get his first action. It was just like one running play, because I think it was second down and short. One run, they ended up putting the ball away, or maybe it was a field goal. I can't remember now. And I thought that was it. I thought, well, this is now going to be Horn for the rest of the game. But Dagey was cleared. He came back in. And then it wasn't until the second big hit that he took, where his helmet actually came flying off, he took a knee, came out of the game, and now Horn came in to run that 2-minute drill. We'll get to Horn's performance in a second. But then Dagey a third time, and JB is a guy that I know takes concussions very seriously, and you've done your research. I think you know more about concussions in football than anyone else I know. What's going on with the CFL spotter, and why was he allowed to continue coming back in the game, given the signs and symptoms that you see? There's no chance that he would pass a Scat 6 assessment, because reaching for your head after hitting the ground, that immediately rules you out for the day.
Right. So let's. I mean, obviously, I started this conversation with the debacle. That is the Winnipeg quarterback situation. Collaros is, the fact that Collaros has been ruled in, but we won't relitigate that. It's really depressing, to be honest. It's really frustrating. The CFL is a league where, let's be honest, billions of dollars are not at stake. Especially in a game like tonight, nothing is at stake for Toronto. If there were ever a time to take a principled stand, it's when the backup to the backup is injured in a game that it doesn't matter if his team wins. So if you can't have a doctor take a principled medical stand, ethical stand, then when can you? Because exactly as you said, first of all, concussions cannot be identified. There is no blood test. There is no way to identify a concussion. All you have are signs and symptoms. Obviously, football players are going to, hide their symptoms. Do you have a headache? No. Do you have this? Do you have that? No. But when you have signs, you have to take the sign as proof. And holding your head after contact is automatically identified as a possible concussion, which is all that you can identify. You cannot identify anything else. Possible concussion, and then you have to wait. The Scat 6, which the CFL says they use, takes a minimum of 15 minutes to do. It is a complex, performed only by a medical professional concussion assessment tool. It requires memory, it requires identification, it requires a checklist of signs and symptoms. It takes 15 minutes minimum. So right off the bat, if a player is approved in less than 15 minutes, then the SCAT-6 has not been done correctly. The CFL says they used the SCAT-6. He clearly had signs of being concussed. He clearly was not able to move correctly, went down and took a knee, grabbed his head. Clearly there was direct contact. As a high school coach, I can tell you that if a player takes direct contact to the head, regardless of whether they have a sign or symptom, it's an automatic rule out. Because the doctors have said if you have contact to the head, that means a possible concussion. I know it's professional sports, but it is incredibly frustrating to have young men watching and young women watching professional sports. But young men mainly play football. Watching professional sports and watching players shake off concussions like it's 1972. I don't understand why the CFL does not take the lead on this. They are not the NFL. There are not billions of dollars at stake. I don't know who the doctors are. I don't know why they don't talk to the press. I don't know why they're not held accountable. I don't know why there are not questions about what they do. I know that there is not much media coverage of it. There certainly is not much from the booth. It's just basically everybody is going about, yep, it's fine. Got some water, shake the cobwebs out. It's incredibly frustrating to see. He absolutely should have been ruled out simply by holding his head and having to take a knee. That's an automatic rule out. And the fact that he wasn't in pursuit of a meaningless win is really disconcerting and disappointing.
What would you say to people who respond to this by saying, well, clearly he didn't have a concussion because he came back in and immediately threw a touchdown pass?
Right. And, like a concussion is not something that stops you from being able to exist. I mean, people have been playing football with concussions for 40 years. There is nothing that prevents you from playing with a concussion. That is what people do. It's what they did in the 1980s and the 1990s. You are able to play with a concussion. You shouldn't, because a concussion is a brain bruise. Concussion is when you have swelling in the brain, which causes the connections to loosen, which is why you often have memory or dizziness. And when the swelling goes down, then everything is fine. But if you take another concussion while you have swelling, you can run into significant problems. So concussions by themselves are not detrimental or a problem. It is repeated concussions or a concussion while concussed is really when you run into medical dangers. So, yeah, of course. I mean, of course they could approve. If you just go by symptoms, how you feel, good. How many fingers you see, yeah, great. They don't have a stroke. It isn't debilitating. It is, you have a bruise on your brain that you need to rest and have recover completely before you return. So I get it. It puts incredible pressure on doctors because guys are like, I'm ready to play. I can see, I can think. All of that is true. That none of those things eliminate a concussion. The bar for concussion is not paralysis or unconsciousness. So that's what I would say to anybody who would explain that he doesn't have a concussion because he can play football. I can assure you, every single person who died from CTE was able to play football with a concussion. And
he did come back in and look, and it's possible that it is still possible that he didn't.
You can come in and play fantastic with a concussion. Of course you can. Like, that's what makes it so hard. That's what's so challenging. The concussion is not a broken spine. The concussion is not unconsciousness. The concussion is something you are able to play with, which is why it's so crucial that doctors step in and say, you cannot. Because I'm a medical professional and I'm telling you that you have shown signs of a concussion, but I don't know how to create a position where a doctor feels comfortable to make that decision with all of the blowback that will occur. And then, of course, people say then the next day when you don't have a concussion, then you're like, oh, well, I didn't have one, and so I know as a coach how incredibly challenging it can be when a player does not have obvious symptoms, um, for that. But my God, they were given 3 bites at the apple. It's tough to watch.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. But yeah, he now moving on to sort of to the subtopic of that. Jared Daigie, I thought played a very good football game. I thought he did a good job keeping the ball out of harm's way. I know there was that late pick, but again, I kind of shelved that under desperation time. I thought he did a pretty good job of getting the ball out under pressure. He found his guys. It was a lot of shorter stuff. Like you look at 20 completions, 221 yards, or about 10 yards per completion. But that's what Saskatchewan was giving him. And I thought he was being smart in terms of taking what was there. And, a couple little things go differently. He ends up with that second touchdown pass. Let's talk about Tucker Horn. He came in at the end of that first half. I really thought we were going to see him throughout the whole second half. I was excited about it because I loved his debut. So he comes in, there's less than a minute to go in the half. Toronto's got to put a drive together. And not only is Tucker Horn going into the wind, he's running no huddle in his first series that he's out there for. And he goes 4 of 5 for 35 yards. They kick a field goal just before the end of the first half. Really impressed with him. He's a guy that Tucker Horn's, I remember being really intrigued by him when the Argos first signed him. He's got a very different way of throwing in that he looks like he is so angry at the football. He looks like he's throwing the football as hard as he can into a wall to punish it. That's every one of his throws. I don't think he has the same natural arm strength, those loose tendons that allow guys to just fire the ball 80 yards. He's not one of those guys. He has to use every muscle in his body to generate that kind of ball velocity, and he does it on every play. But he looked accurate. His decision making was sound. His leadership was good. I'm highly encouraged by what I saw from him. But that's why I wanted to see him in the second half, because I know what Jared Daigie is. I know what I've gotten him, and I don't know what I've gotten Tucker Horn. Now, Coach Dinwiddie has a much better idea of what Tucker Horn is than I do. He sees him every single day at practice. He sees him in meeting rooms. But from an outside perspective, I really wanted to see Horn. I hope we get to see him more next week, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, what a performance to end that first half.
I agree. Like, I'd love to see. I would love to have seen him. Obviously, I'm not going to reiterate my rant, but I would love to have seen him play. And also, I think we know who Daigie is.
Right.
There's I would say decent film on him to have a sense of his strengths and weaknesses. I hope Horn starts the final game. I don't see why you would. Like in my mind, in this game, I would have a checklist of maybe 20 things I wanted to see, and winning the game would probably be like 17th. Because who cares, honestly, in terms of what you want to look at in guys and positions, and maybe they did, but I hope Horn starts the final game.
Yeah, me too. And I like that they got Max Duggan, though, in there a little bit, short yardage. One of my favorite sequences, I know it didn't work out well, 2nd and inches, Max Duggan comes running in a quarterback sneak formation, backs out and chucks it up to Polk. It didn't connect, and it ended up almost being picked. I think I'm going to put that up to the wind blowing 100 miles an hour into Duggan's face. But I like that philosophy. I like 2nd and inches, just keeping the other team on your toes, because that's going to help long term when you are running quarterback sneaks and everyone's thinking, hey, yeah, but we got to watch out for this. Love that stuff. And then on 3rd down, they ran the quarterback sneak and they converted the first down. Like that's what you want. I'd love to see Max Duggan turn into a short yardage specialist. Great. He was so exciting at TCU. we know he can throw the football. We know he can run well with the ball. But being a short yardage specialist, I think, is something we've talked enough about to not need to rehash on this show. But that made my day. I love seeing all three quarterbacks in there at some point. Running game was tough again. I know Spencer Brown had a few nice runs, and that's what makes his final numbers so upsetting. 8 carries for 29 yards. He had an 11-yarder in there. He had a 9-yarder in there. And that means you've got 6 remaining carries for, what's that, about 10 yards. That's not ideal. And I can't even... No. I can't even figure out why. Watching that game today, it like the runs that were well blocked, like everything went perfectly. He read his hole well. He followed his man, and then some other times it was just they just lost at one position on the line. One guy got overwhelmed, and that was enough to blow it up. And that's just been one of the stories of this season. I didn't feel like Saskatchewan was selling out to stop the run. A little bit when they're going. The Argos are going into the wind, but still not as much as we've seen some other teams do at times. So, yeah, I was at a bit of a loss. I did expect the Argos to run a little bit more convincingly today, but that's been 2025. JB, let's transition into the last sort of stages of the game. Argos are trailing late. The Riders decide they're going to go for it on third, and it was third and more than one. It was like third and 1 and a foot. And Cohn comes in, appears to get stopped to me. They measure, and he was stopped. He ends up being like an inch short. They go to replay. Have we ever seen a 3rd and 1 quarterback sneak spot get overturned on a challenge?
No, I mean, for them to say with a straight face that they, through replay from a camera in the sky, they could move the ball 1 inch, that their analysis is so precise without a microchip, but that they were able to move it 1 inch is outrageous. There is, you want to talk about margin of error. Of course you have a margin of error. You have you have 24 guys smashing into each other. Can't really see the ball. There is no electronic measuring based on the field. You have to support what the referees decide, or else, you would have to challenge every single spot. I mean, if you're wrong by, I would say, look, it's a yard. There's no chance instant replay with a straight face can say their margin of error is any less than a yard. If they're wrong by a yard, you can overturn it. But to say they were wrong by an inch is preposterous.
It was a strange one to me because I felt, well, on the broadcast too, like, Ford was talking, and Nielsen too, where like they watched the replay a number of times. They're like, pretty sure that spot's correct. Initially, no, because initially when you see from the spider cam, it actually looks like he gets the ball across the 31, which is what they needed. But then when you see it from the sideline angle, you realize he actually was down before that. His butt ends up hitting the ground, and then he lunges across the 31. But I actually thought the Argos got some breaks today. They missed out on a couple as well. It was a little bit of a scattered outing, I suppose, from the Stripes in this one. But I didn't feel like I felt like probably the Argos got more breaks than not. But that was one that certainly did not go their way. And I'm not sure the Trevor Harris fumble incomplete pass one went their way either. I wasn't sure on that one, where he looks like he's in his throwing motion, tries to hold the ball up, ends up going to the ground. I think I agree with that assessment that that's an incomplete pass, but I'm not positive on it. And the 3rd and 1, I don't know. I didn't think I saw enough to overturn it, but that's not my job, I guess.
I don't know.
So they end up continuing. So the drive continues, but you imagine in that scenario where instead of being down 8 with only a minute to go, instead you're down 5, and you've got, I'm just looking back to here when that was. It's like basically like 2 minutes or a minute 40 to go and you're down 5. Now that makes things pretty interesting. You don't need to rush as much. You don't need to press as much. Maybe it still ends the same way. Maybe it ends in a pick the way it ended. But I think that would have been an exciting finish to see. Again, there's nothing in it for the Argos that way, but I think that would have made for some very exciting Friday Night Football to have it come down to the wire that way instead of the way that it did. But yeah, that was an interesting sequence. Just before we sign off here, JB, look at some of the other stats. Kevin Mittal is getting closer to that 100 catch mark. He's currently, as we speak, the league leader in receptions. He's now, I think he's at 92 on the season, 8 short of 100, which would be amazing if he could get there. Dejan Brissett getting closer to that 1,000-yard mark. He's got a chance at that in the last week of the season. A bit of a long shot, but I think it's possible. And then how about Lirim Hajrullahu ties the Argo record for most field goals in a season, which was his that he set last year, and he's now only one 50-yard field goal short of tying the CFL record at 11, which was, I think, Sergio Castillo. That's phenomenal. He's hit now 15, 16 straight field goals. That might even be an Argo record. I know Mike Hogan was tweeting about that. While you reflect on Lirim Hajrullahu, I'll look that up just to find that out and make sure.
Yeah, he is. I have a soft spot for special teamers, especially for the kicking unit. He is a superb field goal kicker. He can hit from distance. He is consistent. He doesn't let pressure get to him. He constantly, since he's joined the Argos, kept them in games that they ended up winning that they had no business being in. People kind of take it for granted, but he is incredibly important for the team and is an elite kicker and should be, I think, deserves to be on posters and deserves to be celebrated because he is what we've seen when you don't have a kicker. How kind of grim it can be. Yeah, he is excellent. He might be their nominee for offensive MVP.
He's got the points, over 200 points on the season as well. He's done that before too. He's producing offense. He's producing points. That'll never happen though. That doesn't, special teams well enough.
Guys are not going to nominate a guy who's not a football player.
It's not going to happen. I'm just going to read you Mike Hogan's tweet here. Lirim Hajrullahu now has 55 field goals to tie the Argos all-time record. He did it last year. Lance Chomick in 1991. He also passes 200 points, the 5th time in team history that's happened. He did it last year. Chomick did it 3 times, including a team record 236 points in 1991. And 15 consecutive field goals ties him for 3rd all-time on the Argos list. I think he might have meant to write 16 there because I think he had hit 15 earlier, and then that last one was 16. But I'm not positive on that, so we'll have to get that to you in our pregame walkthrough next week. But either way, heck of a kicker. The Argos are very lucky to have him, and he has had an incredible season, which is just kind of what he does. So, pretty special season from Lirim Hajrullahu. Final thoughts, JB, before we sign off here. 27-19, the Argos lose in an entertaining game. Give us your last reflection.
I thought they played hard. I thought Saskatchewan looked okay. I think it confirmed that there aren't any really great teams. If I were a Saskatchewan fan, I would be a little concerned that they didn't take this team to the woodshed as a potential Grey Cup champion. But I thought that they they did the best they could with what they had. Put that on a poster.
That will just about do it for us on this post-game reaction episode of the X's and Argos podcast. The next Argos game is the final Argos game of the season, Toronto at Calgary. It's Saturday, October 18th. Make sure you check out our pregame walkthrough episode coming to you midweek and enjoy the rest of the games this weekend. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Go fight to fall.